A quick addendum on cyber stalking and PII. Let me just go through this real quick. I just got off a panel with Mr. Fantastic. Shout out to Mr. Fantastic and Ramil, as well as Zero and Bomb Cherry. So I wanted to make sure that we're all clear on this, because what was said was not true. That doxing is not malicious. Doxing in itself is malicious. We went over this last week in a cybersecurity live stream over this. Okay, so let me just pull this back up, and let me pull up the docket from the Department of Justice. And it was asked that I provide a reference. So let me actually provide this reference here. Okay. About cyber stalking. It says, New York man pleads guilty to cyber stalking. A New York man pleaded guilty today to cyber stalking victims in the Eastern District of Virginia and Washington, D.C., and to frame them for crimes or workplace violations they had not committed. So this is the reference that was asked of me. You don't get to cyber stalking unless you get to doxing first. Doxing comes before cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is the post effect of doxing, okay? You can't stalk somebody unless you have legitimate information about them, okay? So this is from the stream from last week. Let me make sure I pull this back up. Cyber misbehavior. This is from the Justice Department, okay? An introduction to violent crime on the internet. Crimes in the virtual world can have terrible real world impact on victims. On a series of handwritten flashcards, Amanda Todd detailed the torment she had dealt with over 4 years and posted it on the internet via YouTube video. So YouTube is implicated in all of this, okay? Cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a form of unwanted aggressive behavior among school-age children, generally involving the real world, real or perceived power imbalance that is repeated in or has the potential to be repeated over time. Cyberbullying is bullying that takes place using digital technology, such as cell phones, computers, social media sites, including YouTube, text messages, chat, and websites. Conduct that constitutes cyberbullying may also fall into one of the other terms discussed in this article, but not all forms of cyberbullying constitute federal criminal conduct. Because this article focuses on the nexus between federal criminal law and internet conduct, the term cyberbullying is not further analyzed in this article, okay? We'll go to cyber stalking. Stalking is a pattern of repeated unwanted attention, harassment, contact, or any other course of conduct directed at a specific person that would cause a reasonable person to feel fear. So you don't necessarily have to threaten anybody. It's the feeling of fear that would justify a complaint, okay? So if someone is doxing you and they're putting this information out here and you feel that you're in fear for your safety, then you can actually take action, especially if you know who it is, okay? Repeated, unwanted, intrusive, and frightening communications from the perpetrator by phone, mail, or email, repeatedly leaving or sending the victim unwanted items, presents of flowers, following or lying in wait for the victim at places such as the home, school, work, or place of recreation. Making direct or indirect threats to harm the victim's children, relatives, friends, or pets. So it doesn't have to be direct, it can be indirect, okay? Harassing the victim through the internet. This is where social media comes in. Posting the information or spreading rumors about the victim on the internet in a public place or by word of mouth. So in order for you to be a part of cyber stalking, you have to actually had doxed the victim in the first place, okay? Because you don't get to stalking unless you completed the doxing portion of it. Obtaining personal information about the victim by accessing public records using internet search services, hiring private investigators, searching through the victim's garbage, following the victim, and contacting the victim's friends, family, co-workers, or neighbors, etc. This falls under stalking. Okay, doxing and stalking are synonymous with each other. You cannot separate the two. Okay, harassment. Oh well, actually, there's actually some penal codes here. I'm not going to go over it. D, cyber harassment. According to the National Conference of State Legislatures, cyber harassment differs from cyber stalking in that it generally defined as not involving a credible threat. Rather, cyber harassment usually pertains to threatening or harassing email messages, instant messages, or to blog entries or websites dedicated solely to the tormenting of the individual. Okay, National Conference of State Legislatures, State Cyber Stalking and Cyber Harassment Laws of January 12, 2015. This is recent. In legal terms, this is recent. However, the term cyber harassment is often used synonymously with cyber stalking. There is no general reference to cyber harassment under federal law, but conduct that could be considered cyber harassment might nevertheless be prosecuted under other laws, depending on the specific facts. Okay. While cyber harassment may be described as less serious than cyber stalking, it can have serious consequences for victims. One unique form of cyber harassment, known as swatting, deceives emergency responders into dispatching a special weapons and tactics team to the location of the victim. While some might consider this merely a prank, swatting is actually extremely dangerous, terrorizing the victim and placing both the victim and law enforcement at risk. Laura Kate Bernstein, Investigating and Prosecuting SWAT and Crimes, United States Attorney's Bulletin of May 2016. Again, this is all recent. Another form of cyber harassment is doxing, which refers to broadcasting personally identifiable information about an individual on the internet. It can expose the victim to an anonymous mob of countless harassers, calling their phone, sending them email, and even appearing at the victim's home. Okay. For example, in the heavily publicized instance of cyber harassment known as Gamergate, after the victim Zoe Quinn broke up with her boyfriend, he posted lengthy missive on the internet discussing their relationship and their perceived wrongdoings she had perpetrated on him. While he did not expressly threaten Ms. Quinn, his posting was filled with personal information, and she contends that he was aware that this post was result in her being harassed and stalked by individuals reading the post. That is certainly what happened. The internet exploded against her, in details such as her own address, email, passwords, and family were published. She received thousands of threats, including threats of death and rape. Okay. So that falls under cyber harassment, and it also falls under cyber stalking. So doxing is integral into cyber stalking and cyber harassment. So if you think that this is not a crime or it's not legitimate enough to be considered a crime, you are wrong. The federal government says so. This is the Justice Department, okay? The Department of Justice. This is from their website, okay? This is from May 2016. United States, let me expand this out. United States Department of Justice, Executive Office for United States Attorneys, Washington, D.C., okay? Monty Wilkinson, the director, was at the time. So this idea that you don't, this is not legitimate, you are actually wrong about this, and you will be SOL if you try to go to court and try to fight against it, especially if they have legitimate reasoning that this is the case, okay? I'll drop the link in the chat real quick if anybody has any questions about this. I think it's important that people stop somewhat spreading misinformation about doxing, okay? Doxing doesn't happen on its own. It's integral into what is cyber harassment, cyber stalking. You cannot have doxing without you know, without other components that lead to it. It's illegal under federal law. So you cannot release personally identifiable information, right? This is from the Department of Justice again. Let me share my screen real quick. Expand this out. Doxing is the act of gathering licit and illicit means by illicit and illicit means and posting on the internet personally identifiable information and other sensitive information about an individual, including, for example, addresses, dates dates of birth, social security numbers, telephone numbers, email addresses, credit information, employers, and details regarding the individual's children and other family members. So what happened to Fantastic is that he was legitimately doxxed, okay? This is a crime. The crimes committed by this defendant violated the privacy of dozens of people, fostered identity theft, and endangered the safety of many others. U.S. Attorney Phillips. Mir Islam put people at risk on the internet and in their own homes, placed responding police officers at risk. So when it comes to doxing, the FBI, let me highlight this, the FBI takes doxing attacks very seriously because such illegal conduct jeopardizes public safety and places innocent people in harm's way by exposing private and personal information. So you're not supposed to do that. Saying that because someone goes onto social media that they're opening themselves up to doxing is not a legitimate reason as to why they should be doxed, okay? The FBI doesn't agree with you. The Department of Justice doesn't agree with you. Department of Homeland Security does not agree with you. And so what's happening here is misinformation is being spread throughout the manosphere as a way to justify actions of people who are morally and judiciously bankrupt in this area. According to the documents, Islam and his conspirators swatted and doxed numerous individuals from February through August 2013. So people are gathering information for the sense of releasing something that is not easily findable. So regardless of a person's first name, last name, date of birth, all of these things are sensitive. Okay. Now, now to answer the question that was asked early on Fantastic's panel, how come some of these websites have people's information? Because there's data gathering from these data lakes that gather data when people submit, you know, like for example, Apple may have collected information some years ago on people who bought Macs and iPods and iPhones and iPads, okay? There was a database that they had that was breached. And so what happens here is that information also got leaked out, okay? Unintentionally. Now, some of these other websites that just do data gathering will also gather data through your web browser, sometimes unbeknownst to you, okay? This should be considered illegal in certain states, especially California, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, because there are data laws and data provisions that are in place that companies have to uphold the privacy and the secrecy of people's personally identifiable information and sensitive info, okay? This is what GDPR is about in Europe, okay? General Data Protection Regulation. This is why Facebook was, summoned to court in Europe over this. They had to pay $2 billion out, or 2 billion euros out. Let me answer GA Boy's question. He says, so what if you post just a picture, not an address, just a person's picture, are you going to jail for that? You don't go to jail, but what happens here is you can be held accountable for releasing identifiable information. A person's picture is identifiable, okay? It's personally identifiable to them. So if you release that picture that was unwanted and was not in your possession to begin with, you could be held accountable. I don't think you'll go to jail for releasing a picture, but you can be prosecuted for certain things. There was a case up here not too long ago, maybe back in the mid 2000s, where a person that was actually doing this type of stuff was arrested, and he actually pleaded guilty. They actually found out where he lived and everything else, and he arrested him, okay? He was put on 1 year house arrest. He cannot touch any electronics. No laptops, no iPads, no iPhones, no nothing, okay? Well, actually, this is before the iPhone even came out, but the point of the matter is he had no access to electronic gadgets that have broadband communications to them. So he was put on house arrest, an ankle bracelet was placed on him, and he was not permitted to leave the house unless he had some kind of legitimate reason, like a funeral or a medical reason. But other than that, they kept him on house arrest, okay? They take this stuff very seriously, depending on who you go after. Yeah, to GA Boyd's point, he says, I don't dox, but if this is true, why more people are not in jail? I'm just curious. I think we're in the early stages, right? We're in the very early stages of how to handle misinformation spreading and the illicit gathering of people's personally identifiable information and sensitive information, okay? Once the Department of Justice figures this all out, they're going to go lax on the drug laws, but they're going to start going after people on social media, okay? And they may not even put these people in jail. They may just put you on house arrest, like the person I was talking about earlier, a few minutes ago. And so they're going to make their money off of putting people in the criminal justice system by gathering all of this information, all of these activities that people are doing. I talked about this last week. Let me see if I can pull this up. See if I can pull this up real quick. They have a social media police department, okay? Let me see if I can pull this up. And they did a gaffe about a year or so ago, maybe about 2 years ago, where they took a selfie inside the operations center, and this person's monitors, one of the analyst monitors was exposed. It was like 3 monitors in the operations center that showed that they were tracking people on social media, okay? There's an Israeli company that has a social media surveillance tool, okay? Let me see if I can pull up the image real quick. Let me see if I can pull this up. Just give me a second. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. I don't have a good, I don't know if this isn't a good picture. Yeah, it's not a good picture. Just give me a quick second. Basically, this regional intelligence center, I don't have a good picture of it right now. I don't even know how I got it the first time. This regional intelligence center is local law enforcement doing the job of national security, okay? Chicago Police Department, New York Police Department, Boston Police Department, LA Police Department, Atlanta Police Department, and I think New Jersey as well as Connecticut all have this massive sort of intelligence operation of gathering people's information through social media, okay? They're using a tool from Israel, I forget the name right now, but it's a tool for law enforcement that allows them to use machine learning and artificial intelligence to extract keywords from Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and so on and so forth, and Instagram to collect and create this big database of people who post things on the internet based on their keywords, okay? You start talking about certain things, those keywords get bounced through the system, and then what happens here is they create a profile on you. They have your email address, they have your login credentials, they have where you logged in from. This is happened in the last 3 years, okay? It only went public 2 years ago that they were doing this, and nobody knew that they were doing this, okay? Your tax dollars are going towards this. So the point that I'm making here is when people get on panels, and they say certain things, this stuff is being recorded. Make no mistake about that. Let me respond to let me see who's trying to come in here. Oh, yeah. Yo, what's going on, Zero? Let me answer GA Boy real quick. He says, I kind of agree with Ramil, fellas. Look, your job is off limits, but once you create a public platform, people will dig up your info. It's not so much about whether or not people will dig up your info, it's the legitimacy behind it. This is already illegal. You're not supposed to be trying to find out whether or not GA Boy, where he lives and what he's doing. Once you start doing things like that, you're already in contempt. And for whatever reason, people are trying to legitimize everyone, this sort of behavior without taking into consideration the consequences of all of this. And so don't get on the panel and say something like that and then be surprised that people look at you sideways. Myself, Zero, a couple other guys are in cybersecurity and network security and stuff like that. You just don't say things like that and expect other people who are involved in this sort of area that we're not going to push back. This is an issue of law enforcement. It's an issue of the judicial system. You're not supposed to really encourage or say, well, if you go on YouTube, it's a public platform. No, YouTube is a platform owned by a private company. They can determine whether or not they allow or deny you access to their platform. Okay. He says people have a whole Facebook and IG and think people are not going to find them. Well, it's not so much about whether or not you're going to go find them. It's what are you doing to gather information to find them? Doxing is not something that's easy. Okay, it takes a lot of effort to actually go out there and sift through profiles and so on and so forth and information to gather it so that you can actually go find somebody. That takes a lot of effort. And so we have to take into consideration what's happening in the manosphere is that people are playing a dirty pool or dirty poker for that matter. When they can't defeat you in a legitimate debate, then they want to start pulling out information that's personally identifiable to you, that's illegal. It's like saying if I park a Ferrari in the middle of Brooklyn, I should expect that somebody's going to steal it. That's stupid. That's stupid. Whether or not I park the Ferrari out in the street in Brooklyn doesn't mean anything. I'm not saying Brooklyn's a high crime area. I'm saying there are certain areas in Brooklyn where you probably would not park a Ferrari, but even if you did, just because just because it's on the public street doesn't mean that it's going to get stolen or it should be stolen or we should expect that it should be stolen. That's what your insurance is for, man. The government has been our insurance and in the Department of Justice to prevent these things from happening. And if you did do this, there are cases that people have been arrested for this. Let's go to Zero.
I think Chaos was first.
Go ahead, Chaos.
Can you hear me?
Your mic's kind of scratchy. Go ahead.
In regards to this rise of doxing and people looking through information and putting it out through public platforms like through social media and etc., there's a demand market for this, for people to work in the field to really regulate or into these spaces for, like, government police officers to really start looking into that. Is there a growing market now since it's been out for 3 years?
What is your question?
Like, the question says, can people work in there, like, like the law enforcement stuff, to really start investigating and, start examining people that put in certain keywords or could potentially stalk you through the net? Like, that's what I'm trying to say.
Are you asking, can they do that, or are you saying?
Yeah, because that's not like a market now. Now that there's a need for that, since people are doing this and it's being harmful to people's information, privacy, that other people are taking the time to do and put out for other persons to either attack them if they know, because what's the purpose even for people put people's information out there? What, so somebody else could find them and attack them? So my question is, there's a market for this, where people could go into certain cybersecurity or fields to, like, it's almost like a law enforcement, but only like cyber police in a way. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Cyber police is here. So they're already here. They've been around since probably since 2008. They've probably been doing, they probably had their own dragnet since about 2008. But recently it's been exposed that your public dollars are being spent on this sort of new sort of policing. Okay, it's a new sort of policing. They're taking it to the next level. You don't have guys with guns on their hips and a badge. You have people with hoodies and New Balance on and jeans sitting in the operations center looking at everybody's social media feeds. That's how the new policing is working now.
Isn't that at the same time, Mike B, when 4G came out the next year later? And I think that's when we had the crash that same year. Am I right?
4G came out 2007 with the emergence of the Apple iPhone.
Okay, so all this came around the next year later. So it makes sense now that they have the fastest speed of internet now, that there's a market for it now, that people could do this at a more faster rate. Even with the introduction now 5G, which is now going to be here now, it makes me wonder how more expanding the cyber issue is going to be. So
the thing is, how do you catch, it's a part of counterterrorism, right? So how do you catch bad guys who are using the deep web or the dark web to move information around about their operations? That's the new form of policing. So it's going from the hands of the NSA and the CIA and the FBI, and law enforcement is taking on this whole task for themselves. So local law enforcement is taking on this whole task for themselves. I can't say any more about it because I'm at, I've been in some of these operations and seen things that probably you've never seen before, but they take this stuff very seriously. This is instead of picking up people on the corner, they're gonna start picking people up at their houses and stuff like that. So.
Okay, that's enough to say. Okay, I get you, Michael. Thank you for answering. And what's up, everybody else on the chat? Zero now.
Hey, let's go to Zero.
Yeah, it's like I was posting in the chat there. So the effort is actually the reason why the law was even centered on the harassment part in the first place when it was introduced. It's like because of the effort itself is considered harassment. It's just like when you go out of your way to pick on somebody. And I remember all of this because it was centered around all of these cyberbullying cases where these kids were committing suicide and things like that. That's what it was originally introduced for. And then the federal government wanted to make it a more adult law. So they included clauses which, included like intent to kill, injure, and stuff like that. But the original harassment and intimidation factors are still in the law, which what you were, to your point, when you said the effort itself makes doxing illegal because of the intent to harass and intimidate by default. Because you're making the effort, your effort is the harassment and intimidation. This is the part that Ramil didn't understand. And because I work in security, I'm an infrastructure engineer. This is literally what that law expresses. So I don't know, maybe you need to email it to him, or maybe you guys need to one-on-one about it. Hello?
Yeah, no, you're right, because the thing is, there's a lot of misunderstanding of the legality behind it. They think that, well, it's not that big of a deal. Actually, it is that big of a deal. Remember when somebody had posted something about Obama's daughter, okay? I think they posted on a blog. They said they showed up to that person's house within 4 hours, okay?
Right.
Within Secret Service went to the house in 4 hours, and basically the website was gone. They don't play that stuff, man. This is a new sort of policing that's going into effect, that if you say something that goes against, these new laws, you could be held accountable. And you may not even be a violent offender. Never sold drugs, never stole anything, but say something that's out of character, or do something that's out of character on the internet, like doxing. Yeah, you can potentially go to jail for it. Okay.
Right.
It's a high misdemeanor case. Like the misdemeanor levels are between 1 and 5, and 1 being the highest level and 5 being the lowest. Well, it's considered now a 3 and a 2 if you dox somebody or cyber stalk them.
Right. And I think enforcement is another thing where Ramil was having trouble with enforcement. Now, again, this is where MOT and I kind of agree, where with the enforcement, all you have to do, you have to lawyer up. You have to have lawyers. Basically, you have to have your own lawyers enforce it. This is why I said in one of my videos, if people are really that adamant about it, then I'm just gonna legally bury them. Like, I'm not rich, but I have enough to legally bury a person. So if you're making the effort, then I'll welcome your effort.
Yeah, here's the FBI's website, the I3C. Or IC3, sorry. Let me zoom this in. Yeah, you can file a complaint. The IC3 accepts online internet crime complaints from either the actual victim or from a third party to the complainant. So,
but see, the thing is, I wasn't able to express. I couldn't get the part out about the enforcement with your lawyer, because Ramil wanted to, I guess, hop in there real quick. But that's one part that wasn't really expressed to him, that you do have to employ legal services to enforce in most cases.
Yeah. You're going to see the rise of internet lawyers now.
Yeah.
I think Complex may have covered this before, that there's an app out that you can download and basically pull up a lawyer at the whim of a hat. So, we're in a different space now, and what's happening in the manosphere is actually going to, come back like a boomerang against a lot of people about some of the things they say. Just because you delete the video on YouTube doesn't mean that YouTube doesn't cache that content on their site.
Millions of servers.
Yeah, they can. And YouTube, and I found out this recently, about a month or so ago, they use serverless computing. So they're next level with all this stuff. They're not using physical servers, they're using serverless computing, meaning that these are all, microservices. This isn't like some big, server rack or something like that. They can spin these services. They can spin these services up just at the drop of a hat. It's nothing to them. And they collect all this information. It's all meta stored. And all they have to do is just do a quick search and say, oh, such and such name. Oh, that account's deleted. Not on our side. We'll pull that data, press it to a USB thumb drive, and pass it off, or put it in cloud storage somewhere and shift it over to the feds.
Right. You know, I actually forgot to, because I think I was frustrated, but I forgot to actually mention what you just said about YouTube being a private platform. I mean, a privately owned company with an application that you just log into.
Mhm.
It's not technically a public space,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
It would be the same. So anyway, the federal government is going to treat this the same way if someone like broke into your bank account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're gonna treat it just like a Me Too case.
Yes.
If you look at this right here, it says either from the actual victim or from a third party. So whether it's YouTube or Facebook, somebody who is not you or the victim itself can actually file the complaint on on that victim's behalf or that person's behalf.
Right. Well, that makes it easier for subpoenas and stuff like that. I mean, I understand why that legality would be in there, because if the FBI wanted to subpoena a completely different company, like let's just say some company was using an API, then they would subpoena that company's records as well in order to, you know, just in case they're gathering information too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. People want to argue with the law, man. I'm not.
Yeah, they weren't arguing with you. They were arguing the facts.
Yeah, but they want to argue. They want to argue over either the facts or the person making the statement. But it's already etched in stone, man. It's already etched in stone. So you can try to filibuster or do whatever you want to do, but it's already written in stone. So how you want to get around it, that's on your own court. We can't hold court on a live stream. I don't know why some people want to hold court in a live stream, whether this person touched that person or whatever kind of sexual misconduct may have happened. You know, you need to get on the panel and exonerate yourself. You all are crazy. Once something like that goes down, you're now being held in contempt. I talked about the Boston Marathon bombing before. Okay, the younger brother of the Sarnoff brothers went to UMass Dartmouth. Okay, anybody at UMass Dartmouth in that dormitory who was friends with him and touched that laptop got taken to court over it. They asked him, did you touch his laptop? Yeah, well, yeah, he asked me to plug it up and charge it against the wall. Okay, well, you know, put your hands behind your back. That's how they treat people.
Right.
That's how they treat people. You got people in the manosphere thinking that they can evade, you know, the law by, you know, doing a two-step, man. No, it don't work that way. So, who else was trying to get on? Go ahead, Renaissance man.
Hey, what's up, panel?
What's going on, man?
Hey.
Now, I had a question, Mike. When did these laws come into existence? Because I do remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Spike Lee like take someone's address and post it on his like Twitter or something? It was like a big public event. It was some years ago.
This was Charlottesville. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it was in Charlottesville. They posted the wrong address, and then you know somebody went to somebody's house and it was the wrong person. So.
Oh, and also these laws are basically extensions of laws that already exist, like the stalking law.
Yep.
You know, the stalking law was like, I don't know, in the 90s, like the mid 90s, 95, 96, something like that. Mm-hmm. So cyber stalking is an extension of an already existing US code for stalking.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't stalk somebody unless you doxed them already, unless you have some sufficient information about them.
Right.
Yeah. Now I was going to ask too, Mike, this is just clarification. This wasn't, I was listening to MOT's panel last night. Mm-hmm. This wasn't started by the UBI thing, was it?
Oh, no.
Oh, you know what? Yes, I think it is. That was me when I was telling. No, that's what I think, though. That is what I think. I think
literally started this whole thing in the
manosphere.
Jumped
everything off. He was upset because, so this is what I said to Complex last night on MOT's stream. Mm-hmm. It is my thinking that when you guys were educating him about UBI, he was pissed off because he didn't know what he was talking about, and he has a grudge and he's holding a petty gripe, and he started this whole beef based on you guys making him, in his eyes, making him look stupid about something he didn't know about. Because look at the chain of events. Mm-hmm. Right from there, that's when he started his crusade. Right from there, from that point on.
Yeah, I don't follow him, so I couldn't even really tell you, man.
Oh, I
Nah,
was following.
just hearing that theory was just like, that's crazy. Like, just admit you
Oh,
were
man.
wrong and move forward.
No, you can't. Not on YouTube. You gotta. You can never admit defeat, or people are gonna think you're weak.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, man. People have to be right in the manosphere, man. And I find that interesting. So, but yeah, Renaissance, man. You know, you started seeing the emergence of these sort of you know, these laws and stuff like that when kids were being bullied in school and they started, you know, committing suicide. You know, one of the laws in Colorado is actually named after the girl who actually was harassed on the internet or at school, and then they kind of doxed her and put her information on the internet, and she made an attempt to commit suicide, try to hang herself, but she didn't do a good job of it. And what happened was the losing of air through the hanging attempt actually paralyzed her body. So she has no function below the neck, if I remember correctly, and she can't speak because
Oh, wow.
the oxygen cut off was cut
To her
off from her
brain, yeah.
brain. Yeah, so they actually named a law after her that if you are cyber harassing or doxing people and things like that, putting sensitive information out about a person, they will use that statute against you. And you could, you know, that's a mandatory sentence at that point. So even if the person doesn't die or anything like that, it's just the mental anguish is enough for them to, you know, put you in jail.
Yeah.
In California, they have some very stringent laws just in the state alone for cyber harassment and cyber stalking.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like the U.S. is kind of, because from what I understand, we're kind of probably behind on as far as Europe goes with, you know, what you can say on the internet and things like that. Because I mean, you post something racial on the internet, they'll come after you in some European countries. So it sounds like the U.S. is kind of catching up.
Yeah, yeah, because if you deny that the Holocaust even happened, that's a crime.
Yeah,
That's
they don't play.
Misinformation. Yeah, that's what misinformation is. You know, hate is what they consider. You know, intolerance. Keep it techie had his hand raised. Go ahead. Keep it techie.
What's up, guys?
What to do, man? Put some volume
Hey.
on your mic, please, brother.
Hold on 1 second. My bad. Is it better? Is it better?
That's better.
Hold on. There we go. Should be better.
Yeah.
Nah, I was just gonna come up here and talk about the whole privacy aspect of it. People it seems like Black people are even further behind when it comes to privacy. We don't normally lock our stuff down, and this is a lot of the things you bring up doing a lot of your hangouts, Mike, is about your privacy, protecting your privacy, protecting your passwords and all that good stuff. Well, I mean, we all know, at least on the, I know that, the government has been tracking everybody. This all started, a little after 9/11, with the NSA tracking everybody. And so my whole purpose, I guess, for bringing that up, and then the whole Snowden thing, came out or whatever, where the government is actually tracking everybody. But Black people are kind of behind on actually protecting your privacy, you know what I'm saying? And I just wanted to, reinforce, kind of what you guys are saying. The reason I brought up the NSA, it kind of trickles down, whatever tools they're using at the higher level, which started, it's kind of like, if you kind of look at like the equipment that we used, or that the U.S. Army used or whatever in Afghanistan, a lot of that stuff got shipped back to the U.S. and now it's being used by local law enforcement. Same thing with software. Same thing with different tools that are used to track down the enemy, to listen to phone calls, to watch what you're doing online. Is trickle down to the state level. And so that's how they were catching a lot of those guys doing the whole core cracking thing, where they'll say, "Oh, you send me $100 and I could flip it and make you send you back 400 or whatever." That whole core cracking thing, you know what I'm saying? They was tracking those guys down. I remember guys flashing, hundreds of $1,000s from doing the core cracking thing. So the local law enforcement is it's starting to catch up, and they starting to, you know, use a lot of these tools or whatever to catch people, you know, doing stupid stuff, you know what I'm saying, and putting it online, which is dumb to me. Um, but it was one other thing. Oh, I was just gonna bring up this example or whatever, and this ties back to what you guys were saying. I remember I was following the Lil Boosie trial, and this was back in early a couple years ago or whatever, whenever he was on trial or whatever. Well, they had a guy sitting in the courtroom posted on his Instagram or Facebook basically saying, "Oh, I'm a if Boosie don't get off or whatever, then I'm do something to the district attorney." Basically, that's basically in a nutshell what he said. That same day, they pulled him out the courtroom, and arrest him. Yeah, and that just shows that law enforcement is tracking your. If you affiliated with something that's you know illegal or whatever, they tracking all these profiles. They have these tools that track everything you do, and they pull a dude out of the courtroom right away and arrested him for cyber threats.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to,
threatening over the internet.
yeah,
Yeah, and the thing is, that's a good point that you bring up about social media, because when you submit your profile to IG and Facebook, that no longer belongs to you. If you read the terms and guidelines, it tells you that this now belongs to the social media company, and they can do what they want with it. And so if they want to share it with law enforcement, they very well do so. See, there's a backstory to all of this, and Snowden kind of touched on this in his diatribes. But the way law enforcement was doing it before, the way NSA was doing it before, was that they were inside the data centers of these service providers collecting all this information, which was illegal, right? It violated the privacy, the Fourth Amendment. And so because of that, DOJ revoked all of this stuff. And now what they do is they set up their servers on the outside, and the tech companies or the tech companies and the service providers shuffle metadata to law enforcement now, including the NSA. Okay, on a global scale. So that's why GDPR is even in place in Europe. And now when I was in Africa, that was the discussion that we were having, was how do you protect Africans from being exploited the same way that Europeans were being exploited in the first place. So you have to they were coming up with data security policies that the continent needs to take on in order to prevent people from being exploited by these big tech companies. Point that I'm making here is that, like Keep It Techie is saying, they're watching all of this stuff. It was only a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, that it was revealed here that local law enforcement has these massive surveillance tools for social media. They're watching everybody who's local. They know your Android and iPhone GPS location, where you are. And so that connects to messages that are sent out. When you order stuff from Grubhub and whatnot, they share all that information with law enforcement, or at least it's available to law enforcement when they collect all this data. I mean, you post all this stuff on there, they see you log in from this location, they see you order some stuff from Uber Eats or something like that. It's not that difficult for them to put one and one together and say, yo, this dude just docked somebody, and he just went and got some a steak and cheese sub in Philly.
yeah,
That's what's going on now.
and that's why I always look at people funny when they say, "Oh, the mark of the beast," and "Oh, you're gonna get a chip put in your arm or whatever, so they could track you." They're already tracking you via your cell phone and every service that you use. I don't understand why people keep talking about the mark of the beast when they got an Android phone in their hand and they post everything that they do, every meal that they eat, every single thing that you put on social media is being tracked, and that's the mark of the beast, so whatever.
Yeah, but people want to do that, willingly give their information to these people, and then want privacy all in the same sentence. I don't think you can really do that. Although there's some discussions about how to go about this. My thing is, law enforcement is all up inside BLM too. Make no mistakes about that. That's already been exposed a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, any of these movements, they've already infiltrated.
Yeah.
Every single, if it makes it to the news, you can guarantee they've infiltrated it.
All up in BLM. You got informants all up in there. People sharing information. Oh man, it's such a mess. I would never be a part of any of those movements. Never. And and to think that they're a part of those movements out there, it's only a matter of time that they're going to be inside social media spaces imposing. We know that they're all up in Stormfront.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that with this whole rise of white nationalism, white supremacy, I'm sure if they ever take it seriously, or they may be already up into it already now, like you said with Stormfront.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any sort of movement like that they're involved in. I mean, even back in the 60s. So I mean, if they were doing it then, you can imagine they only got more tools to do it with now.
Yeah, and they started with Black people. It was J. Edgar Hoover who created this massive database of intelligence on Black people.
Yep. And I was going to say, Patriot Act didn't help either.
Oh yeah, and the NDAA.
Yeah.
12. They can detain you for 16 days without any reason.
Yep.
We have DE Raptor on the panel.
Good afternoon, guys. Brother mentioned the Patriot Act. That Patriot Act took everything that was scattered all over the country in different municipalities and states and put it all together, made it one. Everything that they tried, like I said, on Black people, now they're doing it in coordinate across the country under that Patriot Act law.
Yeah.
That's why I told you last night, law enforcement all across the country is operating under federal law.
Yeah, they're trying to create this sort of national police force. That's what
They did. They already did. They are already trained by DOJ, and DOJ is trained by military.
And they also train in Israel.
Yeah.
They also train in Israel. You try to say, tell people about the Patriot Act and the Manosphere. Some of these guys talking about, Brady and
Belichick.
Yeah, Belichick and these guys,
I was going to say, from 9/11 alone, you got the Department of Homeland Security created.
Mm-hmm.
That whole agency was created in response to that. So, and that's one of the larger ones in DC.
They have a whole entire wing just for social media, what they call content moderators. I think that's what they call them, content moderators or something like that. There's a specific term for them, for those who police social media. And I think they call them content advisors or something like that. There's a specific term. I don't remember it right now, but that's what's going on. So
yeah, my company has something like that. They literally have a room where they just got like an area full of TVs and like analysts, and they are literally tracking social media, like if the company's name is mentioned or any sort of events around the world. So I know the government's got it.
Yeah, that's Security Operations Center.
Yep.
Security Operations Center. So
there's a building in Israel that picks up certain words, numbers, photos, and stuff that you can't do in the US. Well, there's one in England too that you can't do in the US, and it picks it up all over the US.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they actually have a more simplified way of doing all of this. It's called digital fingerprinting, where they take all of the metadata that is like basically information about information. So search history, IP addresses, how long you've stayed on a page, what browser you're using, how often you use the browser. Basically, metadata is the data about the stuff that you're using. So they don't even need like direct things. They can get you, they digitally fingerprint you by taking all of that metadata and creating a giant web of your behavior. And they've been doing this for decades, ever since AOL.
Yeah.
You ever heard of a cookie?
Yeah.
That's like a really, really simplified version of a digital fingerprint. So things that are stored in cookies are like the session ID when you go to a website and stuff. But just imagine a digital fingerprint as being literally every single thing that you do at all times. And then what they do is they aggregate the behavior, like what websites you go to every day, how long you're there, like all of this stuff, all of it.
Thank you.
And then
That's what I came up to say.
Yeah, they'll connect you across accounts on like your phone and all types of stuff. So they'll link you no matter what computers you use.
Look,
Hey, wait, is that zero? Was that
Yeah.
zero?
Yeah, what's up? Who was that?
Hell, what are you doing here, you nerd?
Because you explained cookies in the manosphere to like one of the panels who just got off. You know, he's like, "What? I mean, Chips Ahoy, Oreo?"
Well, no, that's what I mean. I keep to piggyback off Zero there. I apologize for jumping in here, but that's what I came to say, exactly what Zero said. And how did I get that information? Right? There are at least 5 interviews of Snowden that are out there on YouTube that he's telling you this multiple over the period of time. He's been out of the game. He's been out of the game for what, 8 years now, 10 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right. And he was telling you, he's like, he's like, through the first Patriot Act, this is what went down. And these powers have just become more and more ubiquitous behind the scenes.
Now, you guys do know that Trump, just a couple weeks ago, he renewed the Patriot Act.
Yes,
right.
Well, of course.
Just so you know that this is an ongoing. Every time they renew it with updates to things like cybersecurity law, social media policy, and all that type of stuff. So every time they renew it, there's updated policies as it relates to those type of things also that updates. So it's not just we're just renewing the Patriot Act. They renew it with updated statutes.
Right. And again, with the metadata, okay, with the metadata. Is that what it was necessarily intended for? No, it was intended to be used to be collated and used for marketers, for marketing, on marketing platforms. It just so happens that same data can be accessed and utilized for law enforcement if they have a subject under fire. Right? Okay. Let me illustrate something. Remember the Atlanta Olympics?
Yes.
Remember the guy that got accused of doing the bombing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How they invested in for what, 8-10 years?
Yeah.
Right? And they were investigating him before they had because this was pre this technology. Right? But they invested and came up empty-handed on him. And what they did is they were doing that. They were doing those investigations through more traditional means, more closer to that gumshoe type stuff, more that old school vetting type stuff, interviewing everybody that he ever knew, interviewing everybody that he ever had contact with him, keeping him under constant surveillance, picking out his telephone records, his phone call records going back decades, all of that stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. And now with this utilization from initially given rise, initially when it was publicly given rise through the Patriot Act, even though they were still doing this behind the scenes, because again, they realized that this information that was being picked up and utilized for marketing purposes, because that's what these huge platforms, again, if it's free, it's because you are the product. If it is free, you are the product. There are paid versions of these same products, of these same platforms, but nobody wants to use them because. And here's the thing: is if it's paid for, then you have built-in protections. If it is free, those protections become gray and ambiguous.
Yeah, it comes out of
well,
cost,
that's not necessarily true, because this is one of the reasons I push Linux. Linux is free and open source. It's a free platform. It's not one of these proprietary OSs like Windows and Mac OS. And what I was going to do was piggyback off of what Zero was saying about marketing. And you're 100% right about marketing. that's that. I just want to bring up, Microsoft side of it as well. Microsoft, what they do is, I don't know if you guys seen that, but over the years they eventually changed where they don't want you to use a local account. They want you to use your email address to set up an account on the actual system when you purchase it from the store. And what they do with that is everything that you do on that computer is tied to your email account, or what they call basically what Zero said, a digital fingerprint. And that's for marketing purposes. And
Mac
Microsoft
does the same
also,
thing.
yeah, Mac
Yeah.
Mac as well.
Mac does the
And
same thing.
yeah, and they tie everything to your ID on that computer. And of course, with all these proprietary software is, you know, subject to being pulled by anybody, any of these government agencies. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I
What?
wasn't saying you're wrong, Judge Zilla, at
No,
all.
right.
I was
No,
just, yeah.
I'm saying, how did they advertise that to the public? They advertised that to the public by saying, in case your device is stolen, right?
Mm-hmm.
In case your device is stolen and you need to access, and you either need to locate your device or you need access to your data, then
Mm-hmm.
you can use another, right? But that's only, they only gave you what, they gave you the spin. They give the consumer the spin on how it's going to benefit them, but they never tell them how it's going to impact them negatively.
Right.
Exactly.
One of the things that most Black people especially don't realize is that in every company in the U.S., no matter, well, the smaller companies, no. But if you got a company with 100, 200, 300 employees, you don't have to worry too much unless the type of business that you're in is connected to something in military or something like that, cyber. But if you got 1,000 employees in the U.S., somebody in there comes out of NSA, Navy, Army, Air Force, Police Department, FBI, or informant in your company.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but I do remember about 15 years ago, there was a case. And since then, since that case happened, a lot of sitcoms have used it as to make a funny episodes with cop sitcoms, right? But there was actually an incident that actually did happen in which they busted up a ring of criminals, and there was actually only one actual criminal in the ring, and he was a mid-level criminal, right? He was a mid-level criminal, but all the higher up criminals in that ring and all the lower downs in that ring all belonged to a federal agency.
Yep.
It actually it's made fun of in some in a lot of cop sitcoms, but it actually happened.
That's serious, bro. Like I said, when I found that out, I was like shocked. And I found that out. I found out way back in the 80s, about 87, 88. I found that out, and
I was going to say,
doesn't surprise me anymore.
Does anybody here administrate like Azure tenants? I know Mike probably does.
Yes.
So I mean, within an Azure tenant, I put in the chat, like there's so much data in there. I mean, so much of it. You can see everything that if you plugged in like a machine learning API, which I'm pretty sure that the government has, you could like get people's human behavior can be monitored. Because there's so much data about every single thing you do. Now, just imagine what. I'm sorry?
UBA, user behavior analysis.
Right. Now, just imagine, they call it big data as well.
it's like predictive analytics, essentially.
Heuristics.
Now,
Heuristics.
just imagine what a company like Google, which their job is to basically collect as much information about you as they possibly can, which is how their business model operates, which is why they can give you these services for free, because they basically just sell your information, and not just your name and address and all this stuff. I mean, they sell the metadata, like they sell your behavior to advertisers. This is how they make their money. So they make a great deal of money about it, because people are willing to pay to figure out what you do and how you do it and all that other stuff. Now, just imagine the machine learning apparatus that the government has to plug into these platforms.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Snowden says, according to Snowden, he says that the algorithms that they use can predict what you're going to do better than you can predict what you're going to do in a given situation yourself.
No, he's right, man. Because one time I said I gotta buy my son a bike. I logged into my email address and I got asked from Amazon about a bike. No, I'm dead ass because I have the Alexa app on my phone. Well, I got Amazon Prime on my phone. It's always listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And,
no.
and I
I was
just
just
said it
about
to
to
him.
say, dude, was there anything that you had connected that where you said that?
My phone. Like I
There you
wasn't
go.
using my phone. It was just sitting on the table, and I was talking to my son, and I was like, dude, we got to get you a bike. And when I logged into my email before we were gonna go outside, I had an Amazon ad.
Nigga, Amazon was like, bet he
That's-
needs a bike.
That's 100%, bro. That has happened to me plenty of times. Like, for instance, just to give you an example, like I kind of don't say it much, but my wife is ill. And so sometimes one time in the past, I remember we were talking about something she needed to order in order to, I mean, it was like some pills or something. It might have been black seed or something we were talking about at the time. Well, I started getting advertisements for that. So, I mean, that, and then this also ties, one thing I wanted to say, this also ties to what you guys were talking about on a previous stream where Google is introducing these watches. You know, they got the Apple Watch. I think you guys were talking about this a while back, Mike.
Yeah,
In
they bought
Complex.
Fossil last year.
Yeah, and how they use that, they're going to start using that data and tying it into, you know, your health records and stuff, and insurance companies could use that data as well, you know, at some point if it's available, you know what I'm saying? So
I don't want to be the guy that's continually one up somebody, but that story that you told, right?
Yep.
Now take the fact that your phone, okay, take that. The slight change I'm going to do is take that conversation about that bike, right? And say you left your phone in your car.
Mm-hmm.
I know somebody that's happened to, because their car was located at the address of somebody else who they were talking to, who had an Alexa active.
Wow.
Yeah. So their car,
Damn.
their own phone, and they didn't have one of the Apple Watches or one of the smart watches either. So their own device was in a vehicle, but that vehicle is a smart vehicle. So it's given off its location. So the other person's phone or Alexa was listening to the conversation, and it deciphered that it wasn't property owner 1, it was property owner 2, deciphered who property owner 2 was, and when they went on their tablet at home to go look for some stuff, they found advertisements on their stuff.
Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, man, this is why we push really heavy for, a startup culture in this tech space, especially pertaining to us, because this is where we have the opportunity to create applications, right, that may be collecting data for our purposes, you know, or you know, maybe doing, you know, like how you have companies that create VPNs to have, like, you know, protective layers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're creating applications where smart devices are actually porting into, then, you know, it kind of governs and manages how the data is collected and how it's routed. You know, so this is why we have all these discussions, man, and we talk about this stuff, because, you know, if we're not collecting the data, then somebody else is collecting, and that's just really how it goes.
Yes, and that's the one thing I was going to bring up as well, Complex. So let me ask this question to the panel, or to those that are here, rather. Okay, so given, right, we already know that legislation cannot keep pace with technology. It's
Mm-hmm.
just flat out. It's flat out unable to do it. It does not have the architecture to do it. It's like expecting to turn a word processor into a computer, right? It just can't do it. So is the situation again that going forward from this point, really, actually probably from 10 years ago, but we'll just say from this point, is again, is just to go through with that note that accept that privacy is null and void. And effectively, what you're going to have to, if you're savvy about the situation, you're going to have to create your own gem in the hologram, Hannah Montana situation as far as your real life and as far as profiles and personalities that you're going to put out in the digital space.
Can I say something? I might be stretching, but from what I'm seeing, the legislation is far ahead of the technology. And I'm gonna say this because anything that you can do now, there's a law under which they can charge you with it.
Yeah, most of your laws are most of your cyber laws are just extensions of the analog laws that were in place before it. So let's go to Renaissance Man. He has his hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Mike or the panel in general, with all the discussion on metadata, I've come across like browsers and things like that that have talked about, hey, Google's collecting your data, this and that. Is there truly any way that you can truly guard it with any sort of add-on on your computer, or technology's not there, or there's so many loopholes that companies can get through that it doesn't matter?
Well,
There's too much server-side stuff to collect,
yeah,
so you can't avoid it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Yeah.
The only way you could the only way to stop Google from tracking what you do is to delete your account. That's the only way.
Right.
And
So-
to not to be funny, but yeah, that's the only way.
Well,
But, okay,
you also can't log into you also can't use any of the same router put throughs for same devices,
right.
because
So I don't want to leave it.
because that'll be associated with whatever profile is out there on that IP address or that user destination. So
Right.
it's a whole fucking thing.
But I don't want to leave it too vague for DE Raptor. So not to be too vague. So what I mean by server side information is you have to connect to the internet using standard protocols. It doesn't matter if those protocols are encrypted or not. So they collect all of that stuff and they create a digital fingerprint, no matter if you block from the client or not. They're still going to know.
I understand that. I'm not a computer expert, but I understand that because my field is electronics. Anytime that, and my field was communication on aircraft. I work with all types of communication that you can think of on aircraft. Anything that could, from putting that airplane down 10 feet on either side of that white line that goes down the runway to telling you it's 20 feet off the ground. So I know about this. Anytime I turned on an airplane, the first thing that airplane did was connect the SATCOM and said, hello, it's like your computer. The computer, when you turn on your computer, the first thing it does is say hello. If it is connected to any kind of Wi-Fi signal, or even if some people believe that they have to go online in order to connect, but your computer's already talking before you connect.
Let me say this though. It doesn't matter what security tools you may use, to try to protect your privacy and all that stuff. But soon as you log in to any of these services, Google, Gmail, Facebook, they know who you are. I mean, that gives it away. And so they'll tie that IP address. Everybody has two-factor authentication. Turned on, well, not everybody, but a lot of people have two-factor authentication, I'm pretty sure, on this panel. Every time you log in from a new device, it's going to verify who you are. You have to two-factor it, or you have to say, oh, is that you that logged in from San Diego? Or is that you that logged in through some VPN, whatever, no matter where you're located? And you have to click on your phone and say, yeah, if you want to get into your email, if that's the only way you get into your email. But all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, no matter what you use to protect yourself, as far as VPNs, as far as going through the dark web, if you log into any of those services, and I'm just specifically talking about Google, any of those type of services you get into, it's tied to you at the end of the day, unless you're using some one-off email address that you're going to delete. later. But
from
you
an
know,
internet cafe that's
yeah,
in a city adjacent to yours. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The only thing,
Yeah, but
the VPN is doing is preventing anybody from eavesdropping you. Let's say you're at Starbucks and you connect to the VPN, they can't see your encrypted traffic, your passwords, or like if you're logging into your bank, you know,
sensitive
all
information.
that good stuff. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean,
VPNs are trivial unless they're point to point. There was a guy named Steve Gibson who he has his own company called GRC. He's been doing security for like forever. He was trying to create a point to point VPN, which would have been super dope because you literally can't, no one can track you over a point to point VPN. That was his goal, but it's against the law. You can't create a point to point VPN in America.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Yeah,
the only way to be completely secure.
Is that just America or is that international law too?
I don't know if it's international law, but I know for sure in America you can't, because they blocked him from doing it. It was one of his like big projects, and then he came on the air and was like, I can't finish it because the federal government won't let me.
Yeah, Microsoft calls it direct connection, but that's a whole different story.
And again, on top of that, again, understand that you would also have to have a burner device.
Yep.
You can't have a device that you've used on anything near what's yours, or have it associated to any account that you've ever used it for. You can't do that because your devices have identifications.
Yeah, your every device that's connected has a MAC address, so hard coded. So,
you okay?
if you explain that to some of these guys in the ministry, like, yo, burners, yo, I got plenty burners, fam. What you talking about?
Dude.
Hey, Zero, if you introduce, the term metadata to them, imagine some of these conscious cats, man, running around talking about, Egyptian musk and, Canadian oil,
Right.
metaphysics, metadata. They be out there trying to sell that, man. I got this thumb drive with this metadata, fam, for your metaphysics.
Oh,
They got all this room to store information about Yakub, who supposedly created white people.
Oh yeah.
But can't, wrap their head around a simple concept such as data being stored.
It's even worse than that. It's even worse than that. They're having, again, they can't, right? It's going to take them forever because they're still having arguments over whether or not certain people from 1,000 or more years ago lived.
Well,
and whether what we know about them is accurate or not. I mean, come on.
These are the same cats that get a couple of helium-based balloons and the USB thumb drive, take that up and send my data to the cloud, man.
Slingshots.
I'm uploading my data. There's a question in the chat.
The coronavirus comes from Linux.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. Once we go
5G activated it. 5G activated it.
Go ahead, sir.
It's crazy because once we go IPv6, there will literally be no more privacy because there will be enough addresses for every, like, damn near every visible star in the galaxy. Yep. And it's like 340 billion. It's like four sets of billions. So
it's literally every device that could literally
ever be.
Yeah.
It was meant for IoT. It was meant for IoT.
Yeah. So because of this, IPv6, there's so many IPv6 addresses that everything will be identifiable. So once you get an IPv6 address, it'll be permanent. And then you can't, you're ID'd at that point.
Yep.
And then all the metadata underneath that IP address is just more about you and your behavior. So that's what the real kick is. That's where we're gonna go.
Yeah, let me answer this question in the chat from Darn Gordito. What about someone putting your public information on a video? Yeah, you're in possession of someone's personal identifiable information, and what's happening here is you put that information into a video, you're also liable too. It doesn't matter if you got it from somebody else or you retrieved it yourself. The fact that you're in possession of this personally identifiable information and sensitive info, and you take that and you put it onto a medium, like social media for broadcasting purposes
without the subject's permission.
Without the subject's permission, you are in fact in contempt now. So, I don't know why people on YouTube want to play that game. That's a very dangerous game now. DE Raptor, go ahead. You were making a point. I think DE Raptor is having his cream of wheat with the lumps in it. So
You gotta stand next to his router.
Saying the IPv6, man. Again, that's like when I was trying to explain to people what $1 trillion actually is, what $1 trillion actually means. Let alone 30 trillion of them. $1 trillion means okay. That cat Jesus that everybody's so fond about. Well, to spend $1 trillion at $1 million a day, you'd have to go back to about 600 years before he was born. That's $1 trillion. But trying to explain the IPv6, that's even harder.
Yeah, to Zero's point, kids being born will be born with an IPv6 address.
Yep.
I don't doubt it, and that's the point I was bringing to Complex, right? Is again, it's I guess maybe somebody else. I'm not exactly sold that legislation can keep up with technology. Maybe it's whether it actually wants to formulate the legislation for public consumption. Maybe that might be my hiccup with it, but it doesn't seem to be able to keep up with it, and it doesn't because it keeps allowing all of these things to only be addressed 15 years after they're actually relevant. So if given that with an understanding of that nature, there is not going to be any such thing as privacy. Look, if you're naked in front of your TV screen, everybody's going to know you're naked in front of your TV screen.
Well, to an extent, yeah. Unless you put a piece of tape over the the camera on your thing. My new HP laptop actually comes with a slide that goes over the camera. I find that to be interesting. It's built in.
The damn manufacturer put a slide.
Yeah, HP put a slide over it. Yeah, because people put tape over the monitor or over the screen. So rather than
they are about their security.
Yeah, this thing's built with security from the BIOS all the way up to the desktop, so it's actually pretty secure.
Well, they have those pop in and pop up cameras now, so that you don't have to worry about that too. So, but
yeah. Let me see who else just joined us. No, that was it, man. I just wanted to go over that because I was on Ramil's I was on Fantastic's panel with Ramil, and I wanted to make sure that we put this information out again, just as an addendum, because a lot of misinformation has been put out there in the manosphere, specifically to try to sidestep and quite possibly legitimize some of these areas. Not saying that this person has done it, Ramil, but shout out to Ramil, shout out to Fantastic. But it's important that people understand the legality behind all of this. Harassing the victim through the internet, posting information or spreading rumors about the victim on the internet is in a public place or by word of mouth. This is considered cyber stalking. Okay, the Department of Justice Office of Victims of Crimes. This is big leagues. This isn't your magistrate court, your trial court up in your neighborhood, man. When you go get a ticket fixed. Now you may be hauled in. And plus your employer can see all of your court dealings. So if they decide that they don't want to deal with you, then it is what it is. That comes up. Your social media record will be a part of your public record now. I don't know.
I'm laughing because most of these cats are, and until it gets connected to their SSDI, they ain't gonna care.
SSI?
I said, yeah, their SSI or their SSDI. Most of these cats aren't gonna care.
Oh yeah. Because you may be disqualified. You may be disqualified just off of you may have an impeccable record everywhere else, but they may see you've been banned from the Black Brain Trust, you've been banned from tomorrow and something like that. You've been put on a block list.
No, what I'm inferring, what I'm inferring, excuse me, what I'm implying is that most of these cats don't have jobs; they receive checks.
Mm-hmm. Up until they need checks, they better hope that UBI comes in.
Guys better watch out if they're sliding people's DMs.
Hey, hey, Mike, can I say this right fast? No, I just wanted to, you know, kind of just reinforce what you guys are saying. I mean, I was listening to Mr. Fantastic too. Shout out to Mr. Fantastic and everybody that was on the panel over there. But he kind of admitted online that, you know, he didn't have his social media locked down, and that's a problem I always see with a lot of Black people. They don't, and people in general, they don't take their privacy seriously until it's too late. And I'm not saying he didn't, because people shouldn't be doing that anyway. But at the end of the day, I just want to, you know, let people know, you know what I'm saying? Just like, I mean, look at the security settings on Facebook. Look at the security. I know that's not going to stop the government from tracking it, but you can stop these people from actually doing this stuff to you by just checking up on your privacy settings on a lot of these different platforms that people tend to be addicted to and can't get away from, you know what I'm saying? And so I just wanted to say that, you know, to add to what you're saying.
Yeah. Can I say something? Yeah, bro. Black people, no matter where you are, well, I wouldn't say in Africa, because Africa is different. I didn't notice that. But Black people in America are, for what I've seen, unless they're in the military or some law enforcement, they will argue with you if you tell them that their information is not secure.
Mm-hmm.
That just about, I can go online and pull up information about wherever they have ever lived and phone numbers that they've ever had and all that. Unless if they've been using the same name, if they switch names, you know, use somebody else's name, no. But even the government knows that.
Mm-hmm.
And these people refuse to accept this, that somebody else is always have their information, especially if they like to talk.
Mm-hmm. All right, I just wanted to have that addendum because I think it's important. So thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you've not already done so. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust Community. Those posted on the community tab. No docket today, just in the addendum. So shalom.
Peace, shalom, everybody.
Peace.